I'm an artist. I love art. I love the process of art creation, you know, learning about how people create their art, going in depth about the meaning behind what it is that people create. That's something that I really enjoy. So I figure why not share in that enjoyment with this podcast here. So this is the first episode of the Poetry in Motion podcast. My name is IsaiahMD, Avatar Isaiah, Mr. Poetry. Whatever you want to call me works. I don't take umbrage with any of those names. Um, but normally this podcast will involve another person. The podcast format will be me kind of talking, interviewing with an artist, creative, whether it be musician, filmmaker, painter, writer, whoever. Kind of going in depth about their process, what they create, why they create, just all those little things, those little nuances about art. Because I love art, and right now art is being undervalued. Um, I think we see it a lot within society where people want to be entertained. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be entertained, but they kind of miss that value of the artist and the creator, the creative. You know, they don't really care about, how good the story is or how good the message is or how technically sound something might be. No, none of that matters anymore. It's all about, are they entertained? Everything else is not even secondary. That value of what we see as an artist has gone way down in society. And I think we see it a lot too within schools. I mean, they've been talking about this in schools for years, how the arts are not funded as much as other programs or like sports or anything like that. And to me, that's crazy because, I've always been to private school, I've always attended private school, and I've always been able to create things. Like art was just a big foundation of it, creating, writing, whatever. I still have some of the things that I've done in kindergarten and preschool, elementary school, high school, middle school, whatever. Like my parents still have some of those things that I've created. Um, there's things that I made in college I'm gonna hold on to for a long time. Um, I think it's important because I can go back and look, like even my old YouTube videos that I used to make. You know, I can go back and look and see, okay, that's who I was at this moment. I can go through my old poetry books and be like, yeah, maybe I was sad right here, but I've grown. I've learned more about myself, about the world. Um, in that value, there's so much value in that as a creative person, as an artist, and wanting to share that with people. It's like, yo, that's important, and we can't diminish that. We can't diminish who artists are in a society because artists help push forward society. I think people forget that like artists question the world in a way that other people can't because they look at things through a different lens. You know, you don't get to certain places. You don't make people aware of certain things without artists. You just don't. Art is a way that we talk about history too. You know, it's so hard to function in society without creative people. Um, and I don't want that. I don't want that to be undervalued. And I think now more than ever, we're seeing that with the use of AI, right? I mean, just even recently with the Studio Ghibli um, art style, AI using that and people taking images and making the Studio Ghibli art style. Like to me, that's weird. That's weird to me, and people defend it, and I don't understand it. And this is coming from someone that it's not even a big Studio Ghibli fan. Like I've seen a few of the movies. I know I like them. I need to see more for sure. Like 100%, I need to see more. I saw The Boy and the Heron. I thought it was good. I thought it totally robbed Across the Spider Verse of the Oscar that year. That's besides the point. Um, but from not even a huge fan, when the creator of this art style of this company says, "Hey, I don't like AI using my art style to create stuff," that's that means something. I think you should respect that. But people defend it, and it's like, yo, people put hard work into this. To me, if you're not talented, you just say that. don't try to defend this AI art thing so hard. Um, I don't get it. Um, you know, you just take the time to learn because art has humanity, life, emotion in it. You can't get that with AI. It doesn't work the same. It's not there yet, and I hope it never gets there. Because if it gets there, then we have a problem. But right now, it can be a tool. Like, I'm not an AI hater. I don't hate AI. I don't hate AI at all. I think it's a great tool. Especially like for me doing video and film, like, okay, AI within the editor, AI to help me clean up my audio. Are you serious? Like, of course, that's great. That's a great tool to make things better. It helps, but it's not creating the thing for me. That's where you get the issue. And I'm not saying it's as simple as, oh, plugging in this prompt here, and oh, this is what you get. Like, obviously, I know there's more to it than that, but let's not act like, we're spending a lot of time drawing something or painting something or writing a book or something like that. This is not what this is, okay? It's not. Um, you know, for me, I really try to look at things from other perspectives. So I tried with this and I do not get it. It's creating the thing for you. You can't defend that. It's not like a camera, right? With film, like a camera's a tool, right? You cannot make a film without a camera. It's impossible, right? I mean, aside from animated, of course. I'm talking about a live action film. You cannot make that without a camera. Impossible. It's a tool. But that being said, the camera is not making the thing for you, right? I mean, you still need actors to be directed well. You need a script. You need lighting. You need sounds, costume design, set design. You need all of that working together to make something really good. It's not making the thing for you, but with AI, it just is. That's just the case. Um, and the thing that I hope we never get to, right, is when AI becomes so good that it blurs the line between artistry and technology. That's when we're in trouble, you know. Um, like I said, I think it's a tool, but once it becomes more than a tool, that's a no-go. I think that's horrible for artists because we're already struggling to value artists right now. But if AI becomes so powerful that it can create hit songs on its own, why does a record label need to sign an artist who wrote a song from their heart, like a really well written song, really well produced song, mixed, mastered, all that, and it probably could be a hit, but you got to pay your artists. But a record label that gets an AI that to make a hit song for nothing, what? Why do I need you as an artist? Why do I need you? And that's when we would run into an issue, I think, with AI. Once it becomes more than a tool and just creates things on its own, essentially. Now, for this podcast, since I like film so much, I want to separate it into 3 acts. Each episode into 3 acts. So that was just the first act, but now we're getting ready to go to the second act. I was recently watching a Mick Jenkins interview. Like, I love Mick Jenkins as an artist. I've seen him in concert. I do want to see him in concert again, but definitely one of my favorite artists. Chicago rapper. Those Chicago rappers are special. But I was watching an interview with him, a clip of an interview with him talking about the media and how media looks at music, especially hip hop, right? Especially hip hop. Because I think a lot of people know that black artists are kind of put under a different lens than other artists. Not necessarily even just white artists, just black artists are looked at way differently, especially when it comes to music and hip hop, But he was talking about this issue with the media and how the media doesn't really look at what you create as a whole. They want to see what they want. They want to hear what they want. And if you're not providing that, then it's bad.
The most popular podcast for hip hop media, while I have my opinions on each of them, I feel that none of them really get into the music and the process and the producers and the process
Right.
at all, really. I understand like entertainment. I don't expect that to dominate the conversation, right? When I hear people talk about, we could go from the biggest podcast, let's go to reviewers. You know what I'm saying? It's like Anthony Fantano as an example.
Him.
I hear people like him and him. I'll say him. You can go reference this because this is somewhere I was kind of disappointed to hear. He reviewed Jiz's album. I think it was last year or the year before last.
Right.
And in that, I hear things like that of like, we're reviewing the music based on what we expected from you and not based on what you had to give me. That's like you sitting down at a notable chef and being frustrated before you take a bite that there's not something that you expected to be on the plate. Like, oh man, y'all ain't got no beef ribs. It's like, well, no, brother, that's not what it ain't no ribs. Like, what? Did you try the meal yet? Like, what? You go, a notable chef. Let me see what Chef Jenkins is cooking up today. Walk in. You're just in time. I'm revealing my meal of the season. You feel me? Like, that's my album, my meal of the season, my plate of the season. Look at my plate like, what? No chicken? Then go to the podcast. It's like, well, I'm reviewing Mick Jenkins' plate today.
The problem with
sadly, it didn't have any chicken on it. It's just like, what the hell does that have to do with what I served you? You know what I'm saying?
And I find all that really true. You know, when an album drops, you know, and I'm guilty of it too. When an album drops, one of the things you immediately go to is, okay, what's the best song? What's the top 5? What's the top 10? Instead of just enjoying the piece by itself, you know, because someone took time to create this, you know, they took time, they put their life and their emotions and their stories into this piece of art, and we can only talk about ranking them or how is this album compared to their previous works. Is this up to par? Instead of worrying about, they went through something crazy and they want to share it with the world. That's what we immediately go to. So there needs to be a shift in the media and how the media looks at art, all types of art. You know, it's not just entertainment. These are people. These are people's stories. And you know, in that podcast too, or in that clip as well, Mick Jenkins, he referenced the Mind the Game podcast with LeBron James and JJ Redick. Now with Steve Nash, because you know JJ Redick's the head coach of the Lakers now. But that podcast was so good. It's so good because it's about basketball. It's about like the art of basketball. There's no one else is doing that. Everyone is talking about he doesn't have that killer dog mentality in him, or you know, who's the GOAT? Is this the GOAT? Is this the GOAT? Could they play in this era or that era? Instead of no one talks about basketball anymore, you know? Nobody talks about basketball. It's all about personal agendas and pushing narratives, you know? No one talks about basketball anymore. And their podcast, they are really talking about the X's and O's of basketball. Why you do this, why you do this, the terminologies that the casual fan is not going to know. And I think that's so good. It's refreshing. But, you know, he talks about in that clip too, how that's probably not going to last in popularity, right? I mean, not necessarily with them, but like, is that going to translate to other people doing something along the same lines? Are they going to talk about real basketball instead of talking about, you know, who's on your Mount Rushmore or who's the GOAT, you know? And I don't think those conversations are bad. Like, I think it's always good to have, you know, fun conversations, but things get personal so quick. It's like, let's talk about the sport, you know, let's talk about the sport that I love. I love basketball. You know, basketball is a sport that's called poetry in motion. So I think that works well with, you know, the title of this podcast actually. But we got to get back to talking about the art, you know, the art of shooting, passing, you know, the art of playmaking, rebounding, timing a block shot. You know, no one talks about this stuff. But on the JJ Redick and LeBron podcast, the Mind the Game podcast, they talk about that. And that's why it's so refreshing. But when you get back to art, right? Like Mick Jenkins was saying, like people want what they want. They want to be entertained. Nothing wrong with that, but let's not forget to highlight what artists are sharing with the world, you know? I'm a person that's like, for me, I always like to look at lyrics while I'm listening to music, you know. If I'm listening to it the first time, if possible, I like try to read the lyrics at the same time. Because you miss stuff when you're being entertained. The beat is probably crazy, but you miss stuff, you know, especially on your first go around. Even with the lyrics, you're gonna miss stuff, you know? But there's double, triple entendres that you might miss, or crazy reference that you might miss, or this song, this 12th track on the album connects back to the third track. Like, it's just little stuff like that. I love that stuff. I love talking about that stuff. I know other people love talking about that stuff. But the way the media is right now, it's, oh, is he our generation's Michael Jackson? Who cares? Why is that important? They're two different artists. Who cares about that stuff? You know, let's focus on art and creation and like, okay, why is this so technically sound? You know, why do I feel this? Like I feel what you're, you know, putting out and sharing with the world. You know, I like award shows for sure, and like I said, I think things get snubbed all the time. There's things that I love that I think should be nominated or just should have won the award. Period, and it's okay. Like art is subjective. It's fine, but you have to be able to have conversations about, okay, this is amazing and why it's amazing. Or even if you don't think it's amazing, you don't have to like things, right? You don't have to like things, but you can't just say it's bad, right? Because there's a meaning to stuff. Art has meaning to it. And this is why I think the bigger issue is that media literacy in this country, in the world, but especially this country, is like so low, right? It's so low, incredibly low. And it's been like that for a while, right? I mean, if you look at the thing, like you look at Dune, right? The Dune movies. I love Dune, right? I love the new Dune movies. Denis Villeneuve is probably my favorite director working right now. But even with the Dune books, right? Frank Hubert's Dune, right? His book series. When he first put them out, it was a cautionary tale, you know? Not to blindly follow people that claim to be religious leaders. But people saw Paul Atreides as a hero. So that's why he made Dune Messiah. Now, me, someone who has not read the Dune books and has only seen the new movies, I can tell that Paul Atreides is not a hero, right? I mean, he's not. It is clearly a cautionary tale. But even now, you get people that are like, "Oh no, he's a hero." Lisan Al Gaib, you know. But that's not the case. I think it's even worse with The Boys, which, you know, The Boys is to me, one of the greatest shows that I've seen, especially in recent memory. The Boys is incredible, but man, do you know how many people don't realize that that show is making fun of them? And it's hard, and it's crazy that people don't realize this because the show makes fun of everybody, like literally everybody. But people don't realize that, and the show is like about like corporate America and all types of stuff. Like it's like, how do you not realize this when you're watching it? It's making fun of events that are happening right now, like in the world, in the country. But you don't realize that? Like, not even people saying Homelander is like a hero. I mean, there's definitely people that are saying Homelander is a hero, which is insane. But not even the fact that people are saying that. It's the fact that people don't realize that the show is making fun of everybody. Like how? It's so obvious. How do you not get that? Like I said, media literacy so low. Even things more recent, the Kendrick Lamar halftime performance at the Super Bowl. You don't have to like it. Obviously, we know who he made that performance for, and it was not the average Super Bowl attendee, right? It was not. It was for the people at home. But the amount of think pieces that dropped when he performed at the halftime show, I mean, my goodness. He couldn't have made it more obvious what he was talking about in that performance. You know, it's one thing for you to not get it, right? But then to not get it and then say it's bad. What? Like, and I think that sometimes people get on, especially Kendrick fans, when they say, "Oh, you just don't get it." Well, sometimes you really just don't get it. You don't have to like it. You really don't have to like it. But to say that it's bad, ah, I don't know about that one. You know? I mean, you look at the performances, the artistry behind the performances, like the camera movements, like everything is in unison and sync. Like that was a sound performance. Whether or not you knew the songs, liked the songs, whatever. I mean, I'm a fan, right? So I'm gonna like what he does. But to say it was bad, come on. We have to get to a point where media literacy and people who, share their thoughts and opinions on entertainment and art don't just call things bad. Like, look at it, analyze it, see what they're talking about. What message are they trying to put out into the world? Let's get to that point, in that place, and then I think we start to look at art how it really should be, right? As a journey, as a outlet, all these things, but we got to get media literacy back up to a standard. Like, there has to be a standard because it is looking rough right now. Recently, I came to the realization that the best art is the most honest. I found this within, my own creations, that things are better, more well received, more understood when I'm more honest. I'm not trying to create something that people will enjoy. Like, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about what I like, what I enjoy, the story that I'm trying to tell, the way I'm trying to tell it. If I can be as honest as possible, I'll say to an extent. I don't want to just air out literally everything, right? But if you can be as honest as you can as an artist, your creation is, there's no limits really. Like, it can be incredible. So I think one of the reasons that I want to do this podcast, right? One, I want to create things more, one of my first videos that I made, actually the first video I made when I got my camera like 2 years ago for Christmas. Shout out mom and dad. I made a video called Make Something. And since then, I have not made as much as I should have. Like, I really have not. I made a decent amount, but I've not made as much as I should have. So I want to continue to get in the practice of making things, right? I'm an artist. I'm a filmmaker. I do music. I write poetry. Like, I want to make things. That's kind of how artists survive, right? They make things. So I want to get into that creative process, but I also want to have like positive discourse about art, and then, like I said, not these think pieces about why this is bad or why this, could be better. It's like, okay, I want to know why you made this thing. Like, I love listening to interviews with people, with artists, filmmakers, whatever. I like hearing how they thought about making stuff. I find it so interesting. It doesn't even really matter like who it is, like what show it is. Like, I like the directors roundtables, I like just any clips of artists, musicians talking about, okay, this is what they thought about when they were making their album. This is what happened in their lives. Like, okay, and then this is how they put it into the art. Like, all that stuff is so interesting. And I think we need to have more positive discourse about it. So that's why I really want to just take artists from around, I really want to do this in person. That connection, I think in-person connection is so different than the internet. But, if it has to be online, so be it. I want to connect with people and connect with artists, learn their story, learn their process, learn just about why they create and what they created, especially if I like it. It's like, dude, I gotta know. I gotta know. For me, they always talk about, if you could have a conversation with anyone in the world, dead or alive, who would it be? And I always say, I mean, Jesus, but like Kendrick Lamar, for me, my favorite rapper, one of my favorite artists, creative people. To Pimp a Butterfly is my favorite album ever. I love the neo soul jazz vibe to it. I just love it. And I want to know like everything about how he created that album. Like I started listening to like Dissect and all those things about how he created that album, and it's incredible. I mean, one of my favorite quotes from him is from that era of when he made To Pimp Butterfly, when he was talking about the album. So yeah, I really wanna engage with artists in that way, um, where we can just have a conversation, have open, positive discourse about what they did, you know. And it's funny, that To Pimp a Butterfly is my favorite album, and the acronym for this show is PIMP, you know, Poetry in Motion Podcast. It's funny how things work out, funny how things align like that, you know. Was it on purpose? Who's to say? I am an artist. I am an artist. Um, but I think back to college. I was a communications major in college, and our department's tagline slogan was telling stories that matter, right? And that's something that stuck with me for sure. As someone that wants to really make movies one day, wants to keep creating music, I want to tell stories that matter. I think other artists would say the same thing. I had a radio show in college. It was called The Appointment because IsaiahMD, like a doctor, like a doctor's appointment. Um, but I would talk about like music, movies, and TV, right? And I would just go on these little tangents about like me loving Avatar: The Last Airbender is, the best show ever made, or Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is my favorite movie. To Pimp Butterfly is my favorite album. I would go on these little rants, but like I didn't really have people to have that conversation with. Um, and I love having these conversations with people. So that's why I'm doing this. I really want to make an impact in how the world views art, how media talks about art, how we consume art, um, and just have fun, have a good jolly old time. Thank you for tuning in for this first episode of the Poetry in Motion podcast. It's been me, IsaiahMD, Isaiah Avatar, Isaiah Mr. Poetry, and I will see you next time. That was the end of Act 3.